We've all seen it happen. A relatively unknown company goes viral overnight. Maybe they get, a massive celebrity endorsement or a link on the front page of some major news aggregator.
Oh, yeah. The dream scenario.
Exactly, the dream. But then you click the link, ready to buy whatever it is they're selling, and you are met with a blank white screen. Or, a spinning wheel.
A database timeout error.
Yes, the classic hug of death.
It's the ultimate digital irony, honestly. The exact moment of a business's greatest triumph instantly becomes this massive public failure, just because the infrastructure simply collapses under the weight of all that attention.
And the reflex assumption is usually hardware, right? People think, oh, they just didn't pay for a big enough server. But welcome to your custom-tailored deep dive, where today we are looking at why that assumption is just entirely wrong.
It really is.
Our mission today is decoding how high-traffic websites actually survive and thrive during these exponential growth phases. We're looking at the foundational architecture that prevents those crashes.
Right, because the hardware is rarely the primary culprit anymore. I mean, you could throw endless server resources at a bad code base, and it will still buckle.
It's like you can't just slap a larger engine into a car with a broken transmission and expect to win a race, right?
That is a perfect way to put it. Scaling a digital platform requires a deliberate, structurally sound approach to the code itself from day one. It's not a switch you flip later.
So to guide us, our foundational document for today is a comprehensive guide titled 5 Ways an Oxygen Builder Development Agency Supports Website Scalability.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why should you care about the specific tools an agency uses?
Well, because it dictates your future, really.
Exactly. Whether you are prepping to launch a massive project, scaling a business, or you're just fascinated by the mechanics of the web, understanding how the architecture of a site dictates its future success is crucial. You don't want to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand.
And this document focuses heavily on how specialized agencies, specifically looking at Viral Chili's methodology, use the Oxygen Builder to fundamentally alter that growth trajectory.
Right, and to understand how to scale gracefully, we really have to establish the baseline vulnerability first. We need to look at the literal code.
The mechanical reason why most sites fall apart under load.
Exactly, especially sites built with traditional drag-and-drop page builders. It all comes down to how the browser renders the document object model, or the DOM.
Ah, the DOM tree. So this is basically the browser's internal map of every single element on a web page, right? Like every headline, image, paragraph, they're all nodes on that tree.
Spot on. And every single time a browser loads a page, its rendering engine has to traverse that entire tree to calculate the layout and paint the pixels on your screen.
Okay, makes sense.
But traditional page builders are built for maximum user friendliness, prioritizing the novice user over the final output. So to achieve that easy drag-and-drop feel, they wrap content in endless, redundant layers of HTML tags.
So they're adding bloat?
So much bloat.
Yeah.
You might have 10 nested div containers just to center a single text heading. Developers call it div soup.
Div soup, I love that. But wait, is this like packing for a trip where traditional builders force you to drag around your entire closet just in case? But Oxygen lets you pack exactly the clothes you need, keeping your suitcase incredibly light.
What's fascinating here is that your analogy is exactly right. Oxygen bypasses all that proprietary wrapper code completely. It generates really lean semantic HTML and CSS.
But browser engines are absolute monsters now, right? We have these incredibly powerful devices in our pockets. Does a few thousand extra HTML tags really slow down the rendering pipeline enough to cause a systemic crash?
Well, individually, maybe not. But it does when you multiply it by massive concurrent traffic.
Ah, right. Scale.
Yes. When a server is trying to deliver a bloated DOM to, say, 10,000 mobile devices simultaneously, those milliseconds of rendering time and memory allocation, they compound rapidly.
So the server's working overtime just to deliver redundant wrapper code before it even gets to your actual content.
Precisely. It directly impacts your time to interactive and causes severe layout shifts.
Yeah.
But when an agency like Viral Chili structures a site with strict DOM hygiene using Oxygen, they are essentially preserving server bandwidth and browser memory.
So you aren't burning your compute budget on rendering bloated layout wrappers.
Exactly. And that means later down the line, when you need to introduce complex API integrations or dynamic user portals, the foundation is light enough to handle that heavy functional weight without slowing down the site.
Wow. So you are intentionally avoiding technical debt from the very first line of code.
You have to.
But building a lean DOM is really only half the battle, isn't it? Because once you have that clean architecture, a development team actually has to maintain it.
Oh, maintaining it is a notorious pain point.
Right. If we're talking about a massive enterprise site with thousands of dynamically generated pages, how you manage and update the styling across all those pages without doing manual, repetitive labor becomes a massive choke point.
It really does.
Yeah.
The traditional approach, especially if you're looking at off-the-shelf themes, is to load these monolithic style sheets.
Monolithic meaning just gigantic files.
Gigantic. The browser is forced to download massive CSS files containing rules for sliders, video players, complex grids, and those elements might not even exist on the page the user is currently looking at.
That seems incredibly inefficient, which naturally brings us to the oxygen class first methodology mentioned in the text.
Right.
So, assuming we understand the basics of CLS classes, the focus here is on a global architecture. You're defining the visual rules for a component, say a complex product card, just once.
One time, yes.
And then you apply it globally rather than styling elements manually on a page-by-page basis.
The shift is really moving from page-level design to system-level design. Specialized agencies use this to build strict design systems. They often use methodologies like BEM,
Wait, Bam.
block element modifier. It's a naming convention that keeps the CSS incredibly organized and modular.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because while a global design system sounds incredibly efficient, doesn't applying changes instantly across an entire site sound a bit dangerous?
How do you mean?
Well, if an agency developer tweaks a global class to fix, I don't know, a padding issue on the homepage, aren't they risking inadvertently breaking the layout of 300 archived blog posts that share that same class?
Ah, I see. Yes, that is the exact vulnerability of poorly managed CSS. It's why you see so many amateur sites riddled with exclamation point important tags.
Right, where developers are just forcing overrides everywhere.
Exactly. It causes a phenomenon known as specificity wars. But the document emphasizes that professional agencies counter this through strict scoping and rule hierarchy. They enforce absolute consistency.
Oh, so they separate layout utility classes from component-specific classes?
Precisely. So a button might have a layout class that dictates its width, but a completely separate component class that dictates its brand color. They aren't making arbitrary global changes.
That makes total sense. It actually reduces style conflicts.
It really does. And they test these changes in staging environments before pushing to the live server. The operational upside of doing this correctly is staggering. In fact, the source points out that 78% of stores that implement these performance-optimized, class-based systems report immediate speed gains.
Wait, 78%? That is a massive operational victory.
Huge.
Because you're stripping out all those inline styles, you're shrinking the overall CSS payload, and you're relying on the browser to heavily compress those repetitive class names.
Sending way less data over the wire.
And keeping visual cohesion completely locked down at the same time. This class-based approach must save months of rework during brand refreshes.
It drastically reduces the friction of iterating your product. When an agency isn't billing you for hundreds of hours of manual CSS overrides, those resources can go into actual feature development.
Which is what actually drives the business forward. And speaking of the business, let's transition from the mechanics of design to the ultimate stress test for any scalable website.
Making money.
Exactly. E-commerce and the speed to revenue pipeline. We have to connect the dots between lean coding and literal revenue.
Well, WooCommerce is the engine driving a massive portion of the web's e-commerce.
Yeah.
But it's notorious for becoming incredibly sluggish as the product catalog grows.
Right. And the text says WooCommerce is a robust platform, but its underlying database structure is where these scaling issues typically manifest. Something about the post meta table.
Yes, it relies heavily on the WordPress post meta table, which uses an entity attribute value model.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of that. As a store scales to thousands of variations, different sizes, colors, SKUs, that post-meta table becomes a monolithic choke point.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a user on the front end clicks a filter to show large blue shirts.
Okay.
The database has to execute incredibly complex, non-indexed Joyan operations across these massive tables just to find those specific attributes.
Wow.
And if the site has a bloated page builder on top of that, demanding its own database queries just to render the layout, the server CPU simply maxes out.
And the database locks up.
And the checkout process simply hangs.
It's exactly like clearing the friction in a physical grocery store line, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter how great your products are or how cool your displays look. If the checkout line is completely stopped, people will just abandon their carts and walk out.
That is exactly what happens digitally.
So how does an oxygen-focused agency like Viral Chili prevent that database lockup? The source mentions optimizing product images and lazy loading.
On the front end, it's about ruthless payload optimization. They don't just compress images, they utilize advanced lazy loading. But, and this is key, not the standard rudimentary lazy loading that causes things to jump around on the screen.
Right, nobody likes layout shifts.
They structure the DOM so the browser knows the exact dimensions of the image before it even loads. It reserves the space and only requests the asset when you actually scroll down to it.
So the initial requests are kept to an absolute bare minimum.
Yes, but the real magic happens on the back end. A professional agency will implement advanced caching layers,
Yeah.
specifically object caching.
Object caching, what does that do?
Instead of the database running that complex large blue shirts calculation every single time a user requests it, the server runs the calculation once. Then it stores the result in high-speed RAM.
Oh, I see.
So it serves that cached result to the next 1,000 users instantly.
You're completely removing the computational burden. It's like writing the complex answer on a sticky note and just slapping it at the front desk.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the impact of these optimizations on consumer psychology is profound.
How so?
Well, there is a staggering metric from the text. There is a 47% faster checkout completion rate when merchants implement AI-assisted product flows backed by these clean code backends.
Wait, 47% faster?
Almost half.
That directly alters the unit economics of a business. I mean, if your customer acquisition cost remains exactly the same, but your checkout completion rate jumps by nearly half just by removing that digital friction, your profit margins expand drastically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And think about those AI tools. Whether they are dynamic recommendation engines or predictive search functions, they require massive computational resources.
Right.
If your server is bogged down just trying to render a bloated page layout, those advanced tools either fail to load or they just time out. They actively cost you sales.
But a lean oxygen-build architecture provides the unobstructed bandwidth those tools actually need to function in real time.
Exactly.
Which opens up a completely different layer of this conversation. Building a fast, lucrative site is great, but we have to pivot to a vital business question. Who actually holds the keys to this machine?
The vendor lock-in dilemma.
Right, moving from building the site to actually owning it. Because the digital landscape is flooded with hosted SaaS page builders, these
Right.
proprietary platforms that promise to handle everything for a monthly fee.
And it is one of the most critical strategic errors a growing business can make. When you build your platform on a proprietary hosted SaaS builder, you're essentially leasing your core business asset.
So what does this all mean if the relationship with the development agency sours? Or what if the business simply outgrows them? Are you forced to basically tear the house down and rebuild from scratch?
With those hosted platforms, often, yes, the source code isn't yours. You are held hostage by their product roadmap.
That's terrifying.
It is. If you scale successfully and suddenly hit an arbitrary bandwidth limit, they can force you into an enterprise contract that costs exponentially more. Your only alternative is a total ground-up rebuild.
Let's compare that to the open source stack highlighted in the document, because Oxygen runs on WordPress.
Right.
Yeah.
You choose the hosting, you have absolute autonomy, you can deploy it on an AWS cluster or a specialized managed host, whatever you want. You own the infrastructure.
And the data.
Yes. And more importantly, the output is human-readable code. It's standard HTML, CSS, and PHP. It isn't some obfuscated language that only a proprietary server can read.
I really want to focus on that human-readable aspect. Because let's say a business partners with Viral Chili to build out this massive architecture. 2 years later, they decide to bring development entirely in-house.
Okay.
They hire a senior technical lead. With this Oxygen setup, how does that handoff actually work?
Well, the document emphasizes the peace of mind here. Because it's standard code, any skilled developer can pick up the staging environments and white-label documentation without starting over.
They don't have to spend weeks reverse engineering a black box.
Not at all. They can jump in, audit the database queries, and start pushing updates on day one. And the text reinforces this with a really significant statistic.
Oh, what's that?
Tools designed with clean architecture and maintainability lead to a 42% boost in developer productivity.
42%. That isn't just a fun metric. That is recaptured payroll.
Exactly.
It's the difference between a dev team spending half their week debugging legacy spaghetti code versus actually deploying features that drive the business. It completely neutralizes the risk of agency lock-in.
You are building equity in your own intellectual property. Instead of just pouring capital into a leased environment you have no ultimate control over.
We have covered a tremendous amount of technical ground today. If we summarize the core journey of this deep dive, it's clear that scalability cannot be an afterthought. It's built into the site's DNA from day one.
Absolutely.
By combining clean code to eliminate DOM bloat, managing styles through a global class-based system, optimizing those e-commerce database queries, and keeping absolute ownership of your infrastructure.
Right.
Your website becomes an asset that grows with you rather than an obstacle holding you back.
Oh.
And the expertise of a professional agency like Viral Chili makes that a reality.
It's structural preparation for the unknown. And speaking of the unknown, there is one final mind-expanding concept here that I think listeners should really ponder.
Oh, I love these. The floor is yours. Where is this taking us?
Well, we heavily discussed how Oxygen generates perfectly semantic, human-readable code, right?
Yes, completely standardized.
And you retain absolute ownership over it without any vendor lock-in. So as AI coding assistants and large language models become exponentially more advanced, think about how they operate.
I need good context.
Exactly. If you feed an AI agent a massive dump of proprietary nested div soup, it hallucinates. It just cannot parse the logic.
Okay.
But having this perfectly clean, standardized baseline, could that eventually allow you to automate massive, complex expansions of your own site using AI?
Right.
You could effectively bypass the need for a traditional development cycle altogether because the AI agent can flawlessly read your global class structure and generate perfect new features overnight.
Wow. You aren't just writing clean code for human developers. You are literally structuring your business to be fluently understood by the AI agents of the future.
It's a total paradigm shift.
That is an incredible lens to view this through. To everyone listening, keep questioning the digital architecture around you and keep exploring. Never settle for a foundation you don't fully control. Thanks for diving deep with us today.